having me on. You're doing a great thing by hosting, coaches and players all across Connecticut. This is awesome, especially when we're stuck here at home in quarantine. So
I really do appreciate that. Thank you, Coach. I'm just trying to help out the coaches and the players, A, to get away from the virus, but also, two, I want people to understand that Connecticut has talent. And I felt like the stigma around other states being able to talk to different people, because I broadcast all around, was that maybe Connecticut was not getting the justice it deserved. So I was like, you know what? Let me do this.
definitely, yeah. I mean, it's definitely picking up. You see a lot of these Power Five guys are starting to create that pipeline here in Connecticut, and it's awesome the recognition that these kids are starting to get. There's definitely a lot of talent here. You gotta almost like striking oil. You gotta chip
Mhm.
away at it until you find it, and they're definitely here.
And I think the case can be made that Windsor, I think, struck some oil in terms of finding a coach like you to be able to come on board. We'll get into how you got to Windsor in a second. Talk to me about how you played football for most of your life, if not all of it. You played at Becker, and then you became a coach at Lewis Mills. Talk to me about that journey.
So I played. I'll start from the beginning. I didn't end up playing any Pee Wee football, unfortunately, but I did play high school ball. I played my high school ball at Cheney Tech. We were co-op with East Catholic back in the day, and from there went to Becker, as you mentioned. Played some wide out. Played a lot of special teams, and then actually I was recruited by a guy named Jose Santana, and it was funny because it was a 2-in-1 deal. He recruited myself and he recruited my mother, um, and they started dating and ended up getting married in 2009. And so from there, he was coaching at Becker, and I was playing at Becker. He ended up leaving Becker and taking on a role at Lewis Mills High School in Burlington, Connecticut. And I was just graduating, and he said, "Hey, they have an opening for wide receivers and defensive backs. You want to come join me?" And I was all about it. There was no NFL. Turns out they're not interested in 5'7" and 3/4, 4'8" wide receivers. So I joined him down at up at Lewis Mills, and from there I was there for about a season, and it was pretty far from where I was living, and so from there I was looking for a job closer, and Jose helped me out and reached out to Pablo Ortiz at Buckley, and joined his staff in the same thing, doing the same role, like wide receivers, defensive backs, for a couple seasons. And then from there, developed relationships throughout Hartford, and met Harry Bellucci. And from there, he said, "Hey, I have an opening over here at Hartford High. I'd love for you to join." And I looked into it, jumped right aboard. He had a couple of my friends as helping him coach over at Hartford High, and I was there for about 5 years. And while I was at Hartford High, that's when I developed into the special teams coordinator at Hartford High School, and I attribute a lot of that to Harry for allowing me to grow within his staff, not only offensively but giving me the trust and reached out to Rob Fleeting, the head coach over here at Windsor. And
Mhm.
I was like, "Hey, I'd like to stay a little closer to home." And Windsor was literally 5 minutes down the street from my house, so it made a lot of sense to jump aboard and join the Windsor staff.
Now, this is the first time that I've been able to talk to a special teams coach, because typically, you know, I don't have the opportunity, especially at the high school level, because sometimes because of money or just lack of coaches, there's no
Yeah,
such thing as a special teams coach. And I'm not disrespecting you in any way. It's just
no,
that
definitely.
schools don't have the funding for that, or there isn't a coach to be able to coach that. So this is really a treat for both myself and people who watch my channel to be able to see and hear from a special teams coach. The question I have for you is, talk to me about what the daily uh, routine is for a special teams coach, because you don't have like designated players. Like a wide receiver coach has wide receivers, a running
Right.
back coach has running backs. You have a special gift where you get to pick and choose the athletic guys to be able to form what is special teams.
Yeah, definitely. You get to it's really awesome because you get to work with the entire team. It's not just, the skill guys. You get to work with the big guys up front, down in the trenches on PAT and your front line for kickoff return and things like that. So you get hands-on approach with every single kid in the program. So basically day by day, how I try to attack it is, obviously we have a kicker, Bowden Gapgo here at Windsor who we go to strictly for PAT and for kickoff. So we work a great deal. And then, we have a couple athletic guys who can punt for us, and we'll work with them as well as far as that aspect goes. And, Rob gives me, some good amount of time during practice to work in, PAT just about every day because we want to score a lot of points. So we better have PAT, down to a science. It's like muscle memory. We don't even have to, to the point where we don't have to go over it. Really, it's just, all right, get out there and do it because we've gone over it so much. And then it's basically, like you were saying, not a lot of coaches in Connecticut are designated special teams coaches. So what I get to do is I get to watch, when we break down huddle, I get to break down all of strictly just the kicking game, whether it's punt return, kickoff, kick return, things like that. And I get to find, ways to give us an advantage. How do we use our guys and how do we attack each week? Sometimes, things happen and somebody will get the best of us, but that's just how it goes. But that's just basically how I attack every day, watching the film and trying to find ways to give us an advantage on the kicking game, whether it's, punt, whether it's kickoff return. We had a ton of athletes this year, especially Amir Spears, Primo, who was one of our premier kick returners. And he makes
pretty
you
good
look
at
good.
Basketball. He's pretty good.
Yeah. I don't know if you heard of him. He's all right.
Who hasn't heard of him in Connecticut? I mean, come on.
Seriously. Yeah, even outside of Connecticut. I know he was on some New York over the summer. So, and he makes a lot of coaches look good. So,
yeah, I would agree with that one. Now, as a special teams coach, because I know, I was a former pitching coach during the Legion season a couple years ago for a Naugatuck team. And what got me giddy as a pitching coach was seeing my guys throw shutout innings and out walking people. You consider a football coach who's maybe a quarterback's coach. He loves it when he sees quarterbacks throw touchdowns. For you, what gets you giddy inside as a special teams coordinator?
If we can get a block on a punt, if we can get a block on PAT, if we can make a difference on the return game, if we're hitting, a big return like week 2 against Massac, they scored, we're feeling like, all right, here we go, we're in a dogfight, and then we hit off like an 80-something yard kick return down to the 3-yard line. It's like, boom, all right, offense, here you go, 3 yards to go. Those types of things. We had our kicker go 6 for 6 on PAT, and those are huge. Last year against Platt, it was 6-3. Platt just kicked the field goal, getting late a little bit, and our guy Courtney Jackson hits a middle return, 85 yards to the pay dirt. And that was the difference. We ended up beating them 13-3. So it's those things like that. If we can make a difference positively on special teams, that's what really gets me going. And then obviously I lose a lot of sleep when, it doesn't work out. We're losing a lot of sleep, and it's that gets tough, but definitely making an impact. Like you said, you can look at the box score and see offense puts up 7 touchdowns, defense pitches a shutout. And if you can see so-and-so ran the ball back 85 yards for a kickoff return touchdown, or, Windsor had a couple block punts, that's what really gets me going.
And you mentioned how a defense being able to pitch a shutout. You mentioned about the special teams being able to contain a team and put the defense in a better position, the offense, depending on what the situation is. Now, you're part of the CCC conference. Very good conference, very competitive in a multitude of ways. I mean, Windsor again, the CCC, one of the top conferences in the state of Connecticut, and it still seems to be that Windsor every year, somehow always in the playoff hunt, either for the quarters, the semis, the championships. Windsor has a well-oiled machine in terms of a football program.
Definitely. Speaking from an opponent every single week, like a couple years ago, I was on the other side of it, having to prepare for a team like Windsor. And how do you do that? How do you prepare for the Benny Foleses, for the Quinn Fleetings, for the Tyler Coyles, of the world? It's tough. It is really tough. So I'm blessed to now be on the other side, and I see exactly why. The coaching staff is dedicated. They work hard. Rob is running, like you said, a well-oiled machine. He is just the mastermind behind all of this, and he is an amazing job keeping us coaches in check, keeping the players in check in the off season. And then, the buy-in from the community, the buy-in from the parents, that's definitely, you can see how that will create an advantage. And just being here in Windsor and seeing how all this works, and family comes to mind. And it's not just in the locker room and in the school, but the community. They love the football team. They love the football program. And that speaks a lot when you have a buy-in, not just inside your locker room. If you have outside influence and outside buy-in, administration, community, it all adds up.
It helps, like I mentioned, because they won the championship in 14. And then from 15, 16, 17, 18, you consider quarterfinals loss, final loss, semis. But it wasn't like they lost to a number of teams. It was two teams that they just could not get by, Hand and New Canaan, two powerhouse who produced Division 1, 2, and 3 athletes. And
Yep.
you had an opportunity to be a part of kind of the rivalry, seeing New Canaan. I think you mentioned prior to us coming on last year, or us coming on this show, but you played them last year. So talk to me about, how was that in your first year being able to see that?
Getting to get a taste of it at their Grip and Rip. So New Canaan runs this Grip and Rip passing league. It's a 2-day event down in New Canaan, Connecticut, and just seeing that fierce rivalry. Lou Marinelli, another, you talk about the who's in Connecticut coaching. Lou is fantastic. Steve Filippone and Dave Mastriani have also, created a monster down in Madison there with Hand. And going up against them in the 7-on-7 tournament was just amazing. You can see the fierceness about it. New Canaan, they both went about it in a professional manner, but you can just tell the recency bias of, okay, Hand is the team. We have a target on their backs, and they have a target on ours. That's, it was literally 7 months removed from that game in December. So you could definitely tell, we had a lot of kids coming back that were on that team. They had some kids coming back that were on that team, and it was just back and forth ferocity. And give us pads right there. That would have been amazing to just set up an impromptu game. That would have broke a lot of rules.
Now you consider that, every game that you play against a team like that, you wonder about the intensity. You wonder about, can the players kind of contain themselves and put themselves in the right position to not maybe go overboard? Do you feel like, in now what was your first experience under facing a team like that with Windsor, that maybe even you learned something that you didn't know prior to coaching? As you mentioned how you coached against them and now you're with them.
Speaking in terms of Windsor,
Yes, in terms of Windsor.
um, definitely something that I learned is, a lot of programs, like it's just the differences. Like you were just talking about, the well-oiled machine that seems to be Windsor football, and what goes into that. And a lot of it is, in my opinion, is just the buy-in that you can get. And you can do so much as a coach to try to create that. And but you can't force it. In other places, like we mentioned, I was at Lewis Mills, and not to knock them, but it's a very big lacrosse, soccer heavy town, and football kind of went by the wayside a little bit. It's starting to come around. You see their successes, and a lot of that has to do with, you convince the community to rally
Mhm.
around the kids, rally around the sport. I know a lot of parents, they don't want their kids playing football because of the concussions or what have you. But if you can get a solid, turnout with the community, with parents, it means a lot. It means a lot to the kids too. And then the football side of it, you don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop learning, no matter where you go. You can go down to Pee Wee and learn something, from somebody, because it's all different ways people coach. And it definitely made me a better coach. Definitely honed my skills and seeing how, certain things should be done. Maybe I wasn't doing something the right way. And, you're always developing no matter what. And if you're not, then, maybe it's time to hang it up, but that's definitely the mentality that I bring to it. You learn something new every day, and you have to, whether it's about a player, whether it's about how to coach a player, whether it's a new technique, different scheme, drill, what have you. But every single day there's something new to learn. And so, being at Windsor, being anywhere really, just coaching the game of football is definitely a blessing in that aspect.
And as a special teams coordinator, you had a front row seat to be able to see a lot of talent from both the opposing teams in the CCC that Windsor played against, and then for Windsor. And I'm more interested in the players that play for Windsor. The two in particular, Jaden Murphy, who is the running back, who, again, I watched a lot of film on him. And the two things that jumped out to me are not afraid of contact and
Right.
can catch in the backfield. Two
Mhm.
intriguing and very good parts about a running back. Tell me about Murphy.
I'll tell you the first experience I had with him. I come into the weight room one day and I see this kid. He's walking around. He actually has his shirt off, and I'm looking at this kid like, dang, he's really, he's built like a ball player. You look at him and you're like, okay, now I see why they're so
Mhm.
dang good over here in Windsor. You got kids like this walking around. So, I'm like, hey, how are you, Coach Jerr? Nice to meet you.
Mhm.
And where are you going next year? What are you thinking about? You know, after graduation. He looks at me like I'm crazy, like I have 6 heads. He goes, Coach, I'm a sophomore. And I look back at him like he's crazy. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You're
He
a
was that
sophomore.
he was that yoked up as a sophomore.
Yes, as a sophomore. And
That's
this
not
was just
fair.
last year.
That's not
Yeah,
fair.
and he's going into a senior season now. And I was
Wow.
just stunned. I was taken aback. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You're only a sophomore. Wow. 15-year-old looks like that. Looks like you're just ready to play right now for UConn. It was pretty wild. But yeah, he's definitely talented. Definitely talented. Shifty kind of guy. He has
Mhm.
the footwork, has the heart. So he'll definitely be an asset for us on all facets of the game.
Did you ever see the picture of Bo Scarborough, who played for Alabama when he was
Yeah.
15? It was
Yeah.
funny because I remember when they were I think it was like the day or two before draft day. They were just going through. I think they kind of ran out of stuff to talk about because the draft was so close, and it's like they didn't want to repeat themselves. So they were like, "Oh, let's show pictures of like guys what they look like when they were 14 or 15." So they showed this one kid who was like skinny mini, but now he's bigger, but still he was skinny at age 15. And then they show Bo Scarborough, and then he's as yoked up as like a 20-year-old. I'm like, that's
Seriously.
not fair,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
And when I saw that, and that was like the moment. Like, okay, we're at Windsor. We're somewhere. This is different. This is different. I've coached some kids. Some talented kids, but just seeing
Mhm.
that and how he's gotten after it at such a young age, you can tell that he definitely has a bright future.
And I'm glad you mentioned that you've coached some kids in the past because a player that you know well, Bernard Lee Jr., who you
Definitely.
coached a couple years ago, tell me about him because, again, I had an opportunity to watch him on Huddle a couple days ago prior to us coming onto this interview. And the tackles for loss were impressive, but the motor man, he seems like he plays until the whistle is blown 5 or 6 times. And I mean that in a good way.
Hmm. Yeah, that kid has heart. He definitely has heart, and he's had that since he was about 14. Like you mentioned, I coached him at Hartford High, um, his freshman year, and I had a two-headed attack with him in the backfield, and he was like the bruiser. He was like the bowling ball. You give him the ball, and you just hear like Chris Berman rumbling, bumbling, stumbling, and that was him. He was just big little round bowling ball type of kid, running people over. And he has the heart of a lion, and then he transferred to Windsor, and now coaching. And it's really good having someone like that, especially with the special teams aspect. He was our personal protector on punt, and he knew how to set the guys up. He knew what I wanted in terms of where to have them aligned and what we're doing on punt, on kickoff return. He knew exactly where to go. He was our center on kickoff return, so he was like in the middle of the field, kind of directing kids, on what to do. So he had that familiarity of kind of what I wanted to see out of the special teams, and yeah, he has a motor. You see him, you see the numbers on the stat sheet or the numbers on the roster, and you think a kid of that stature with that weight, okay, he might be a nice pulling guard, but as soon as we give him the rock, he's going to run you over. And that's his mindset, like a Derrick Henry type of mindset. I'm not going to get pushed back. I'm just going to finish forward. He proved that in our last game against Middletown. He ran for over 200 yards. So it's pretty – that kid has, the heart of a –
Now, I think, again, thank you for being able to, come on, Coach Jerr. I really do appreciate it. I hate to ask this question because I feel like it's almost like, oh, they've won so much in the last couple of years. So what happened? But last year, 7-3, did not make the playoffs. What's the right word I'm looking for? What didn't go right for Windsor in 2019 compared to other years?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's kind of what we're figuring out now in the off season with our self scout, looking at what we could do better as coaches. Getting the kids better prepared for in certain ways, certain aspects. We always take it on the chin as coaches. We'll never point at fingers at anybody and say, hey, it's this or that. Ultimately, it's on us. It's on us to get these kids, to get them prepared, to get them ready. And so, we have, we know what we can do. We know what we could change as coaches and how to get better. Schedule's already out, for next year. And, we're getting ready to hit the ground running. So can't really say. I mean, there was a lot of turnover, in my understanding, a lot of young guys filling in some roles that don't really, they're their first time seeing some varsity action. So, some of it is expected.
They need experience.
Right, exactly. They need some experience. So some ways it's expected, but, like you're saying, at Windsor, it's not expected. We have expectations of, going to the playoffs. There's expectations of semifinals. I mean, I wouldn't even say semifinals. It's kind of like the New York Yankees mentality. It's championship or bust. So we want to get to the States. We want to overcome that hump. What can we do to finally, take down New Canaan, and prove that Windsor is the team to beat, because we are. And we believe it. We think we are. So we know we are. So we have the schedule. We have week 1 circled, and that's what we're going to get ready for.
It could have very well just been a blip on the screen, like you mentioned. Talent that could very well, there's a means to an end. Maybe they were, as you said before, just need to get that experience, just get seasoned. So who knows what could happen the next football season? We'll find out. Coach, I have one more question for you. I know that Lane Kiffin followed you on Twitter. Please tell me, A, your first reaction when you saw that, and 2, have you talked to Lane Kiffin?
So, all right, to answer the first question, this was the exact reaction. It was, whoa. Like, are you kidding me? Lane Kiffin I screenshot it. I sent it to everybody who would care.
I saw it. I liked it. I was like,
yeah.
No way.
Yep, screenshotted it and I sent it to everyone that would care. I sent it to my wife and she's like, "Who's that?" I'm like, "Oh boy," but but no, yeah, that was awesome, man. Lane Kiffin, I was pretty pumped. And no, actually, unfortunately, we haven't had a chance to have a conversation yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hopefully, like, if he sees this, that'd be fantastic. Like, hey, let's talk some ball, Lane. He's down at Ole Miss now. Hey, I'll go down to Oxford before August and talk some ball with him.
Mm-hmm.
But I've actually met through the Nike Coach of the Year clinic, Hal Mumney, and it was a fantastic opportunity. He came up a couple years ago, and he needed a ride back to New York. Him and his wife.
Mm-hmm.
So I volunteered to drive him. So I drove from here down to New York. We stopped at Frank Pepe's down in New Haven, had some pizza. Had to give him the Connecticut experience.
Best place. When people tell me that Frank Pepe's pizza is overrated because it's thin crust and burnt, I look at them like, "Are you nuts?" Stop talking.
Exactly. Well, anywhere on Worcester Street, really, I could have brought him and he would have had a good time. But I had to bring him to Pepe's. But that was just awesome. Talking with Hal and seeing him this year in the XFL level, that was pretty neat. Seeing him do his thing, and that was kind of one of the things that he mentioned that I took away from that ride. He said, find a niche. Find that. Try to find that niche and try to carve what you want out of coaching. And so that's what I'm trying to do with the special teams. A lot of people, like you said, there's not a lot in Connecticut. So, trying to really learn as much as I can and take advantage of that.
Well, hey, you know what? I'm doing this show because there's talent out in Connecticut that people need to realize. And just because you're a special teams coach does not mean that you can't be a head coach and succeed at
Sure.
the high school, college, or pro. Because look, two coaches I'll name to you that were special teams guys. Judge from the Patriots. He is now the head coach with the Giants. A guy named by the last name of Harbaugh, who's the head coach for the Ravens.
Yep,
He's doing pretty good. I think he won a
all right
Super
for
Bowl.
himself.
Yeah. So seriously though, man, you're doing a fantastic job. The work that you have done has, it's shown, and I hopefully people will see this and realize that there's a talented coach at Windsor who's doing a fine job.
Wow, thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, and if Lane Kiffin, hey, call me up. Let's talk some ball. If you see this, let's chat. I would love to talk ball with Lane Kiffin. Oh, wow, that'd be incredible.
Imagine that. That would be I can guarantee you would probably lose. And not just like if I was talking to name the pro athlete like Byron Jones, because I'm a Cowboys fan, and even though he's with the Dolphins, the amount of information just that they could be able to speak in 15 minutes is more than you can get out of somebody in an hour.
Yeah, seriously. And real quick, I'm a huge Titans fan. And we actually took a trip. We brought our guys up to Boston College last spring.
Mm-hmm.
That was like my first interaction with Windsor. We brought all the guys up to BC. We went to their spring game. So, they get wrapped up. We get on the field, talk to some of the coaches, and I turn and I look. I'm looking over, and I'm just like, this guy looks really, really familiar. I don't know where I've seen him from. Get a little closer, Mike Vrabel. So I am just like, wow, that is amazing. So I'm like, Mike Vrabel, head coach of the Tennessee Titans. I'm probably like the only Titans fan here in the state of Connecticut, and I'm meeting this guy. Like, I really hate the Patriots, so that was kind of a little sour because it's Mike Vrabel. But at the same time, hey, you're the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, man. What you did with the Patriots is no longer. So
you're not the only Titans fan. A former friend of mine, well, I shouldn't say former friend, but a former teammate of mine who I played Legion ball with years ago for Waterbury, he's a Titans fan too. And after the Patriots lost to the Titans, I sent him a message on Facebook and said, "Hey, is Matt Zaport alive? Please let me know." And I made sure I tagged him. And he answered me back immediately and said, "I'm alive right now, but I don't know what I'm going to do after." I was like, okay.
Oh, it was amazing. That was amazing. That, like, 9-year-old me, like, all the monkey was off my back. I wanted them to come to Hartford so bad. Didn't happen. So that was 21 years of just, 21 years of watching them succeed. And that could have been us. That could have been Hartford.
Yep.
But, that was just pure relief. It was 21 years of like,
Mhm.
finally, they get what's coming to them.
Hopefully you can have that same feeling, but with Windsor, if you
Definitely.
can go up against Hand or New Canaan. I have a feeling that you're probably going to have the same reaction. Maybe not 21 years bottled up, but I think it's going to be quite a bit of excitement if Windsor can pull it off and finally get over that hump against one of those two powerhouse teams.
Oh, for sure. That's the goal. That's the goal. That's what we're going to work towards.
Well, Coach, we ran out of time, but again, thank you very much. I appreciate for you to be able to come on. You're always welcome anytime on this show.
Hey, definitely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate all you're doing.
That'll wrap things up here on the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.